Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everyone. John, it's good to have you back with us and the rest of you. Which reminds me, Kathy, I saw your message. Yes, you should have received an email, and it would tell you how to set up an account, and you can join us for our partners meetings and so on. So check your junk mail, and if it's not there, then let me know, and I will send it on. A lot of times it goes to the spam folder. I don't know why. But anyway, thank you for supporting us. So you may notice that this looks a little different today. Just moments, yeah, Aaron, yeah, I knew somebody would notice. Just moments before I logged on here, my camera disconnected from the computer and I could not find any way to get it back quickly. I restarted both devices quickly and nothing happened. So I had to switch to my MacBook camera and as you can tell, the framing doesn't quite fit like normal and so on. So I apologize. I know it can be distracting. Um, it's a wider angle lens, not on purpose. Yes, Darren, not on purpose. So anyway, hopefully by tomorrow I can get back to the normal look. For those of you listening via podcast, see, you don't have to be distracted by these things. So count your blessings. All right, so we are in Matthew chapter 10. And we're in this section where Jesus is sending out the 12 apostles to go through the cities and towns of Israel, not the nations, not even Samaria, but the lost sheep of Israel, as he says. And he tells these 12 men, I am sending you as sheep among wolves, and they are going to eat you alive. They're going to persecute you. They're going to strive to put some of you to death. I'm asking you to go into harm's way in order to proclaim the good news of the kingdom to these Israeli cities. And Jesus is very upfront with them of the cost for these 12 men. And so we saw this yesterday in verse 26. Hey, that worked. Good. He says, you may not therefore fear them, meaning those who are persecuting you, led by the Pharisees and scribes and priests. You may not therefore fear them, for there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, and hid that will not be known. That which I tell you in the darkness, speak in the light, and that which you hear at the ear, proclaim on the housetops, and do not be afraid. Twice now, this term, fear. Do not be afraid of those killing the body and are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in Gehenna. He's saying, gentlemen, have your priorities straight. Get your perspective right. There is a natural fear of someone who has the ability to kill you. But you really need to orient your thinking such that you are not fearing them because all they can do is kill your body. Fear the one who can kill your body and your soul or life. It's the Greek word suke, which will be important here in a moment. They can kill your body and your life, suke, soul, in Gehenna. Now, why would Jesus exhort them this way? Because the temptation will be to fail in their mission, to become so afraid of being killed that they don't preach the good news, that they don't pursue the things that Jesus is giving to them in order to try to save their life. And Jesus says, if you do that, if you preserve your life out of fear, it'll cost you something greater after you die. And we're going to see more of these same exhortations as we go. But it's not all stern warning. Here he gives them great encouragement. He says, "Are not two sparrows sold for an assarion?" Assarion is, coin, like a penny. It's usually translated something like that. I think it's the lowest value coin in their day. Are not two? I'll probably just use penny for our conversation here. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Right? You can go buy these common cheap birds for next to nothing. And he says, and one of them will not fall on the ground without your Father. Interesting phrase. God is fully aware of even the death of a sparrow that is worth, a penny or two. I can't remember if it's just a translation or if one of the other Gospels uses the phrase, I should have looked this up, one of them will not fall on the ground apart from the will of your Father. I could look that up. But anyway, the sentiment is there that the Father is concerned with the death of a sparrow. And he says, and of you, talking to these 12 again, even the hairs of the head are all numbered. Numbered by whom? The Father. And cue all the ball jokes. I'm sure somebody's typing one right now. Even the hairs on your head are all numbered. Therefore, he says, do not be afraid. Third time here. Do not fear. Do not be afraid. You are better than many sparrows. Now, if you have a strange sense of humor like me, this passage always raises the question in my mind, how many sparrows? He says you are better than many sparrows. I'd be the guy in the back thinking, Lord, how many? 10, 100, 1,000? Which, of course, is not the point. The point is obvious. If the Father is so deeply concerned about the number of hairs on your head and a basically worthless bird falling to the ground, how much more is he going to be concerned with you when there is threat of your life? Your Father knows. He cares. Don't fear the one who can just kill the body. Fear the one who can throw your body and your life into Gehenna. But remember, he cares for you. So persevere. Stay the course. Finish what I'm giving you to finish, and it will go well with you. Aaron said, are these warnings like those to the rich young man? They seem like general warnings about priorities, heavenly kingdom. Well, so far he's just talking to these men, these 12. And again, he needs to go here because they're going to suffer. You remember that account in Acts when Peter, James, and John, I believe it is, are dragged before the Sanhedrin, and they don't execute them. They warn them to stop preaching in the name of Jesus, and then they scourge them. Look up on Grok. It's been a while, since I've mentioned Grok. Look up on Grok what a scourging was like in the first century. They were whipped and beaten head to toe. And this is that story where they come back to the church and they are singing and praising God that they were counted worthy to suffer for the name of the Lord. They weren't kicked off of Twitter. They weren't demonetized on YouTube. No, they were beaten, faces bloody, lips puffy from being beaten with rods and whipped, and lacerations on their back. I mean, they were physically, brutally beaten. And so Jesus is telling them it's coming. And on the one hand, the warning, don't avoid this kind of persecution at the expense of truth. And on the other hand, remember your Father knows and cares, and even a sparrow doesn't die apart from him. So if the Father is going to allow you to die, know it's for a good purpose, and your reward, which I'll talk about in a moment, will be even better. So, Aaron, is it for everyone? Maybe, but my concern when we just so quickly grab this and make it a general application is we minimize what these men are about to go through. There's a reason he's telling these men these things, I think. Everyone, therefore, who will confess in me before men, I also will confess in him before my Father who is in the heavens. Now, here the question on my mind is this statement still focused on, or is it broadening out to the Jews to whom they are preaching? I think it's to the broader audience. Remember, he's been telling them, look, I want you to go to all of them. Well, I covered all this. And you men, you 12 are to go and preach the good news to them if they will confess in me. Now, this certainly is true of the 12. Okay, this part is definitely true of the 12, but I think it's got a broader application for them, saying, look, you're going on this mission and you're going to tell them the king has come, the kingdom has come. If they will confess in me before men, I will confess them before my Father who's in the heavens. That's a good thing. Whoever will deny me before men, I will also deny him before my Father who is in the heavens. So it certainly serves as continued exhortation to these guys. You be faithful and confess me, and I'll confess you in the heavens. And therefore, when you stand before the Father in the heavens, I will be confessing you in that situation, and that'll be good for you. But if you deny me, then I'll deny you. But I also think this is going to extend to the broader audience because of where he's going to go next. You go proclaim the truth of the kingdom and realize some of them will receive you. Remember what we saw yesterday? Some of them will invite you in. They will hear you. They will believe this message, this report that you are delivering, and you are to bless them, and it'll go well with them. And in turn, Jesus will confess those people before the Father in the heavens. But there are going to be others who will not accept your teaching. They will not receive your report. They will deny me, and I will deny them before my Father in the heavens. Do not suppose, or you may not suppose, that I came to put peace on the earth. Now, wait a minute. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. Peace I give to you, he says elsewhere. See why context is so important? Certainly, from one perspective, Jesus came to bring peace. But from another perspective, he didn't. Well, what? For the Jews. We see this again and again and again in the Gospels. Jesus said, I came to fulfill the law and the prophets. Matthew 5:17, we looked at that. Well, what did the law and the prophets say? The prophets said, among other things, the majority of the Jews will be blind to the Messiah because God is angry at them for generations of spiritual adultery by going after and chasing after idols. There will be a remnant who will receive the righteousness and the blessing of the Messiah, but the rest will be hardened. Paul spent a lot of time drawing from Isaiah and other prophets on this in Romans 9, 10, and 11. That's the whole point of Romans 9, 10, and 11. All the prophets, or most of the prophets, spoke of this. Isaiah 6, I alluded to the other day, talking about the missions conference, so to speak, and how we tend to use Isaiah 6, here I am, send me, and then we don't finish it, where God says, yeah, I'm going to send you, Isaiah, to a people who have ears but can't hear and eyes that can't see, lest they should turn and believe and I save them. The whole point is the reason they can't see is because God is judicially hardening them. He's blinding them. Well, Jesus is coming to fulfill all the law and the prophets, including being the catalyst for some of the Jews, the remnant, to receive his blessing, peace, righteousness, and for the rest of them to receive his hardening. They will reject him, they will deny him, and then they will receive the due punishment for their sin in 70 AD, and then, of course, after death at their judgment. Well, here he is speaking of his fulfillment of the prophets, in particular, Micah 7. We'll look at that in a moment. So he says, you may not suppose that I came to put peace on the earth. I did not come to put peace, but a sword. What do you mean, Jesus? Well, it says, for I came to set a man at variance against his father. There's going to be civil war, or I guess filial war. A man is going to fight his father over Jesus. And a daughter will fight her mother because of Jesus. And a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law because of Jesus. And the enemies of a man are of his household. Now we know this is exactly what happens, but what he's doing here self-consciously is saying, I'm coming to bring about what Micah predicted. So in Micah 4, now the actual quote that Jesus mentioned there is Micah 7, but let me catch some of the context. Micah 4 says this, it shall be in the last days, the mountain of the Lord shall be manifest, prepared on the tops of the mountain, it shall be elevated beyond the hills, and peoples shall hasten to it, and many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and they will show us in his way, and we will walk in his paths, because out of Zion shall go forth a law, and a word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Now, if you know your Old Testament, you know that word for word comes also in Isaiah chapter 2, which is very interesting to try to determine the timing of all of this. It's likely that one of them is quoting the other. Anyway, we'll save that for another time. And he shall judge between many peoples and shall reprove strong nations far away, and they shall cut their swords into plows and their spears into sickles, and nation shall no longer lift up sword against nation. They shall learn war no more, and each shall rest under his own vine and under his fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord Almighty has spoken this. By the way, I believe that process started with the coming of Christ, and we are moving more and more toward that. I know it doesn't always look like that. Some of you would say it never looks like that. But if you step back and get a 2,000-year perspective, plenty of evidence the world is moving this direction. Not in a straight line, but he is bringing peace across the world. I'm convinced that's what it says, and I can see it happening. Anyway, don't worry about that for now. We'll talk about that some other time. That's what Micah says is going to happen, right? In the last days, which the last days were the last days of the Old Covenant era, which occurred in the first century. So then chapter 5, we get a passage that you all know, and Christmas is right around the corner. You, O Bethlehem, house of Ephrathah, Ephathra, that's a hard word to say, and very few in number to be among the thousands. One shall come forth from me, for me, to become a ruler in Israel, and his goings forth are from old. He shall give them up until the time she's in labor, and the rest of her brothers will come. He shall stand, and so on. This is and this shall be peace. So a statement of peace here when the Messiah comes. Of course, that's Jesus, and we know that that's quoted at the birth of Jesus. All right, so I know I'm going fast. I'm sorry. I need to slow down here, because what's the point if I say it so quickly you can't understand? All right, so we get a couple of messianic last days prophecies there, and then starting in chapter 6, we get this. Do hear a word of the Lord. The Lord said, rise, plead your case before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear, you peoples, the judgment of the Lord, and you chasms, foundations of the earth, because the Lord has a case against his people, and he will dispute with Israel. Okay, so God has indicted Israel, and he is like a prosecuting attorney. He has a case to make. Oh, my people, what have I done to you? How did I sadden, or how did I annoy you? Answer me. In other words, why would you behave the way you are? Did I do something to cause this? For I brought you up from the land of Egypt and redeemed you from a house of slavery, and I sent before you Moses and Aaron and Miriam. How could you act so treacherously when I brought you out of slavery and gave you leaders? Oh, my people, do remember what King Balak of Moab planned against you, and what Balaam son of Beor answered him from the reeds as far as Gilgal, from the justice of the Lord might be known. Go back and read your history, Israel. With what should I lay hold of the Lord? Shall I lay a claim to God Most High? Shall I lay hold of him with the whole burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will the Lord receive favorably among thousands of rams, or among 10,000 swollen streams? Should I give my firstborns for impious acts, the fruit of my belly for the sin of soul? No, he has told you, O man, what is good, and what the Lord seeks from you. It's this simple, Israel. Do judgment or justice, love mercy, and be ready to walk with the Lord your God. You're thinking it's this massive sacrifice you need to make for the Lord. No, just do the right thing, Israel, and love mercy and walk with the Lord your God, which they haven't been doing. The voice of the Lord will be invoked for that city, and he shall save those who fear his name. Catch that? Those who fear his name. Don't be afraid of the one who can kill your body but can't kill your body and life, but fear him who can. Hear, O tribe, who shall adorn a city? Will a fire in a lawless person's house treasure up lawless treasure, and a measure of pride in justice? Shall the lawless be justified by a pair of scales, or deceitful weights by a bag? From these they filled their wealth with impiety, and her inhabitants were speaking lies, and their tongue was exalted in their mouth. All that saying they're just a bunch of liars and cheats. And I, the Lord says, will begin to strike you down. I will annihilate you because of your sins. You shall eat and not be satisfied. It will grow dark within you. You shall swim away and not escape. And as many as shall escape shall be delivered over to the sword. You will sow and not reap. You shall press olive and shall anoint yourself with oil, and every wine you shall not drink. And not anoint yourself with oil. So you're going to have olives, but not olive oil. You'll have wine, but you won't drink it. And the precepts of my people will be annihilated, and all the works of the house of Achab. And you walked in their counsels, that I might give you over to annihilation, and her inhabitants to hissing, and you shall receive reproaches of peoples. Now the prophet speaks, woe is me, because I have become like one gathering stubble at harvest, and like grape gleanings at the vintage, and there's no cluster to eat me, O soul. I said the prophet. This might just be a Jew living in this time, kind of being personified here. Because the devout has perished from the land, and there's none among people who's upright. All give a judgment for blood. They afflict each his neighbor with affliction. Right? As God does this annihilation of Israel, there's going to be civil war. Each is going to attack his neighbor. They will prepare their hands for evil. The ruler requests, and the judge has spoken peaceful words. It is what pleases his soul, and I will take away their good things, like a moth eating and crawling on a rod in the day of your watching. Woe, your vengeance has come. Now their weeping shall come. And here's what Jesus quotes: "Put no trust in friends and do not hope in leaders. Guard yourself against your bedmate so as to communicate anything to her. For a son dishonors a father, and a daughter shall rise up against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. The enemies of a man are the men in his house." So God's going to pour out his anger on Israel because of their wickedness. And part of that, the way that will show up is households will be divided over Jesus, the Messiah, and they will turn against one another. And as happened in 70 AD, they will literally kill one another. So Jesus here is telling his 12, go proclaim the good news to the households of Israel, but understand this: many will not receive what you are saying, and they will turn against you, and they will turn against each other. And now he gives the warning for those who deny him. He who is cherishing father or mother above me is not worthy of me. He who is cherishing son or daughter above me is not worthy of me. Remember he said earlier, go into the household, and if they are worthy, then pronounce the blessing. Well, how do they prove themselves worthy? They receive the report. We believe you. Jesus is the Messiah. He is the coming one. He is the King, and the kingdom is here. But if they cherish their family and not Jesus, they're not worthy of him. In other words, someone comes to your household, if you're a Jew in that area, and Peter shows up and pronounces the kingdom, and some of the household believes and some of the household doesn't. And the ones who believe it don't want to, the ones who don't believe it, so they kind of downplay it. They deny it even though they're convinced. Jesus says, no, you're cherishing your wicked family who have rejected me more than me. You're not worthy of me. And whoever does not receive his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. How many times have you heard somebody say whenever things are difficult, oh, we all have our cross to bear? What nonsense. No, these people in Israel are going to suffer the consequences of a hostile Jewish leadership if they hold fast to Christ. Right? I mean, think about the Apostle Paul before he was the Apostle Paul, overseeing and supervising the stoning of Stephen. Well, in that sense, Stephen was called to bear his cross, to hold fast to the truth of Jesus and be executed for it. He was a Jew, and the other Jews hated him, shamed him. Remember, crucifixion is the worst, most shameful way to be executed. Roman citizens weren't allowed to be crucified. There might have been a couple of exceptions, but they were beheaded, not crucified, because it was so shameful. That's the shame of the cross. The worst of the worst criminals were crucified. Jesus says, you need to be willing to suffer humiliating and excruciating execution by your fellow Jews if you're going to be worthy of me. He who found his life, this is that same word, suke, his soul, it's usually translated, but I like life better here. He who found his life will lose it. How would they find their life? By denying Christ. Like, they will stay out of trouble if they don't hold their allegiance to Jesus as the Messiah. If you find your life, we'll lose it. But he who lost his life for my sake will find it. Let them kill you. Let them persecute you, even to the extent of losing your life, and you will find your life because you will receive reward. Look at the next section. He who's receiving you, talking to the 12, receives me. So as you go into these Israeli cities, they receive you, they're receiving me because you're going in my name. And the one who's receiving me is receiving him who sent me. That's the Father. And he who is receiving a prophet, you, in the name of a prophet, me, will receive a prophet's reward. And he who is receiving a righteous man, you, in the name of a righteous man, me, will receive a righteous man's reward. And whoever makes little ones, not young ones, I don't think he's talking about children, he's talking about the most insignificant, poor Jew. Whoever may give to a drink to one of these little ones a cup of cold water only in the name of a disciple, truly I say to you, he may not lose his reward. Do you know the Old Testament stories of like Elijah when he goes to the widow's house and she gives him her last morsel of food? Right? She received a prophet. And what reward did she get in return? Not only did she have enough to eat every day, miraculously as the oil replenished, but he raised her son from the dead. Or Elisha. At one point, this woman blesses and shows hospitality to the prophet Elisha, and Elisha rewards her. She had been barren, and he says, a year from now, you're going to be holding a son. And she did. She received a prophet's reward because she received Elisha as a prophet. So Jesus is borrowing that same concept here, which was very familiar in the Jewish mind. It says, if these people will receive you, 12, who are coming in my name, they will be greatly rewarded. Now, they may not be rewarded in this life. They may be killed. But I will confess them before the Father and his angels. And as we saw in Revelation and other passages, the reward they would get at judgment in 70 AD would be far greater than any reward they could get on earth. All right, let's see what. So Aaron, yeah, okay, good. Darren says, this is flowing better in my mind now. Good. Is there any significance to the fact that his siblings and grandchildren and parents listed, but not husband against wife? Yeah, nothing comes to mind. Darren, I answered your question. Good. Someone says all this is minimized so much when it's a slap in the face to those going through the tribulation. Exactly. And let's not do that. Let's not do that. All right, very good. Well, actually, I can't improve on that statement, so I'll leave it right there. All right, tomorrow we'll get into chapter 11 and continue on with these things. Have a great one. Ponder these things. All right, grace and peace to you.